Hello, and in today's video we are doing an FPL Game Week 32 deadline stream. Firstly, we're going to start off by looking back at how we did in Game Week 30 and 31 these last couple of weeks, and we're going to look at my team selection and transfers for the Game Week 22 deadline, talking chip strategies, captaincy, and much more. So if you do go on to enjoy this video, make sure you smash a like on it, subscribe for more content on the FPL Yellow Army channel, and let's get into this video this morning. So we'll start off with a quick look back at how I got on in game weeks 30 and 31. So going into game weeks 30 and 31, we were on a fantastic run of green arrows, something like 13 in a row. And so going into game week 30, I had the one free transfer available. I decided that I wanted to make just the one transfer because there wasn't a lot wrong with my team. One thing I was planning for was the doubles, because we got the announcement after the international break of double game week 34. So I don't have my free hit left. I used it in game week 29 in the blank game week, and I've still got my wild card and bench boost. So that double game week 34 announcement clarified things for me to free hit in 29, wild card in 30, 36, 37. Ahead of the bench boost in 37. Now, the plan was to do that. Once we got those double game week 34 announcements, it clarified in my head that I wouldn't wildcard in 30 or 31 ahead of bench boosting 37 because it was too much of a gap. And ultimately, the team I had set up pre-game week 29 was already well set up for double game week 34. So wildcarding ahead of 30 didn't make much sense to me. When I was already having triple Bournemouth for their double in 28, triple Arsenal. I also had, a couple of Wolves, or one or two Wolves, with Hwang Hee-chan still in the team. So it just didn't make sense to me to wildcard. I wish I had with these last couple of weeks, because I'll get on to talk about how they've been. But at the time, it looked like a logical decision, because I'd be wildcarding out players that were going to be on the wildcard anyway if I was preparing for that free hit. For that game week 34 without the free hit. And ultimately, you do need two different teams ahead of game week 34 and 37. And if I wildcarded into a good team for 37 in game week 30, then I'd basically not have a good team for 34. And with a wildcard still in the bank, it made more sense to me. I've already got a team for 34, so then wildcard out of that end of, after 34, and therefore I'll be well set up for 37's bench boost. So one free transfer made was basically to help get ready for the next few weeks. With the coming fixtures for Chelsea, I just felt I needed Cole Palmer. I felt like how I didn't have Cole Palmer. Recently I obviously took him out with Chelsea's blank game week in mind a few weeks ago. And since I've not owned him, he's been absolutely unbelievable. So I was like, all right, ahead of Burnley at home, he's got to come back in. And I had a bit of a decision of who to sell because I basically was thinking my transfers with 31 in mind of I need to get Salah in by 31. So I needed enough money to afford Salah in for 31. Now, the plan was originally I could do maybe, say, selling Foden for Palmer and then doing Son and Watkins to Salah and Darwin. That was what I was thinking. I could only then afford it if I sold Foden in 30. So that's what I did. At the time, it looked logical because City didn't have a double in 34. They won't double till 37. They had Arsenal at home that week, so quite a tricky fixture. And Foden, with Champions League coming up, might get less minutes. It's always a good asset, but he might just, get a few less returns. So that worked well in game week 30. Palmer got 2 goals against Burnley. Looked absolutely amazing. I didn't captain him, unfortunately. I ended up captaining the player that I think most people captained in game week 30, which was Son Heung-min, because he was facing a Luton side that, have struggled this season. But, yeah, unfortunately, I didn't own Salah, so I couldn't captain him against Brighton. Very relieved to see Salah, just get the 1 goal against them, because I was hiding behind the sofa. I couldn't afford Salah, really, without taking a crazy amount of hits. and I just wasn't willing to sell any of those players. So therefore, I had to compromise with Son. In the end, Son got more than Salah, so more than happy with that. Neto clean sheet wipeout was very frustrating. I thought against Everton, he looked like he was going to get the clean sheet for a long time, and then Everton and Beto had to score late on. So that was annoying. Gabriel got a clean sheet against Man City, though. Pretty happy with that. Obviously, I didn't expect it, but I started him just because of the attacking threat, and I unfortunately did bench Gabriel Saliba. I benched William Saliba, sorry, because who's going to bench none of their Arsenal attackers against Man City? It just makes sense to bench one of them, and Saliba had less goal threat, so that was my thinking. I got punished by it because Saliba got given the bonus point, and frustratingly, I was 1 point away from a green arrow in this game week. So starting Saliba over Gabriel would have given me a green arrow, which is absolutely crazy. As you can see with Palmer, he hauled big. And yeah, I just unfortunately was 1 point off a green. But Zabani also, the clean sheet wipeout, as I mentioned with Everton's game. Doherty, I don't know why I started Doherty, but my logic behind it was I've got pretty bad defenders for this week. I've already made the one transfer. I don't want to have to take loads of hits. I didn't think there was one defender that would get a clean sheet that week that would be worth taking a -4 for. So that's why I didn't change my defence. And I started Doughty over Saliba or Ake because, Ake had Arsenal, so I thought Arsenal would score in that one. Saliba, the same kind of thing. I thought City would score, but, he had less goal threat than Gabriel. But I started Doughty. I felt Spurs would score, but I just went for who are my most attacking players outside of Zabani, who had a good home fixture against Everton. Who are my most attacking defenders? And I just felt that Doughty and Gabriel were that. So it's a shame that Doughty did no attacking returns because, as I say, 1 point was the difference to a green arrow because, yeah, he just got nothing. Clean sheet wipeout, no attacking returns. Midfield, Saka blanked frustratingly against Arsenal. Didn't look great in that game. Pascal Gross got the 1 pointer. I mean, look, it would have been tricky for me to have done Gross to Palmer because then it would have basically not allowed me to afford Salah and Darwin the week after that easily. Now, in the end, I didn't bring in Darwin, but the point goes that I would have financially had problems if I hadn't have sold Foden with the kind of transfers I was planning in the next few weeks, especially Salah, because if I'd have done, say, Gross to Palmer, and then selling Foden, I didn't really want to do that in 31. It's funny, actually. It ended up being logical because he scored a hat-trick that week, but at the time, I thought it was more logical to sell Foden against Arsenal. At the end of the day, selling Son in 31 was what I should have done. In the end, I ended up having to, I wanted to keep Son, so I ended up not bringing in Darwin, keeping Son, and Son blanks against West Ham anyway. But yeah, Son was brilliant against Luton at least, and he got me a nice captaincy return, 10 points. Pretty much happy with that. Palmer, as I said, huge return against Burnley. Watkins, frustratingly, went off at half-time against Wolves. That was really annoying. And then he obviously was missing for the Man City game in 31. So I sold him in 31 for one of my strikers I brought in. But, yeah, real shame to see Watkins do that against Wolves. Then Solanke, 7 points against Everton. Lovely stuff. And Haaland, 2 points against Arsenal. On the bench, Saliba's bonus point was painful. I was pretty happy, though, when Ake went off with an injury because I benched him and, that was a good decision. But, it would have been a clean sheet for City. At least there wasn't that for Ake. But, yeah, it's kind of another defensive issue I had going into 31. So, yeah, all in all, 61 points, 1 point off a green arrow because my safety score around my rank was 62. It's just crazy. You got some people even getting less than 61 and getting greens. So, fine margins. And unfortunately, the red arrow kind of hit me hard in the chest there. It was a painful one to take. But going into the midweek games of 31, I was like, right, keep the faith. It's all right. You still got a good team. You can bounce back with a nice juicy green arrow. Nope. -8 was taken. And now, you know what you're going to say. Why would you take a -8? That's pretty much going to give you a green arrow. But I just felt I needed to gamble because Salah had to come in. It was an absolute essential move to do that. And to afford that, there was a few transfers I had to make, really. So Neto, firstly, what a legend at home against Palace. Got the clean sheet, lovely stuff, and the bonus point. one of my transfers in was Ryan Aït-Nouri, because to afford the Salah move, I needed Salah. I thought about doing Son and Salah and Darwin and Watkins. I just didn't want to lose Son though. I just felt that selling Son in the form he's been in was mad. So that's why I kept Son. And then to do that, I couldn't get in Darwin. I could only get in a cheap forward for Watkins. And then I also needed to make another transfer to make it all work financially. So that was a -8. So I thought, is a -4 to sell Son better than a -8 to keep Son? And I kind of ended up, falling on the latter. In the end, I really should have done that move, but hindsight's a wonderful thing. Son blanked against West Ham. Darwin scored. It's just unfortunate luck. But the thing that was the most unlucky this week was Phil Foden. Now, whether it had been this week or the week before, I probably would have still sold Phil Foden. Obviously, if I was on a wild card and I had, loads of money and transfers to play around with it, then I would have obviously had the midfield 5 of Foden, Palmer, Saka, Salah and Son. But I didn't have that luxury. I didn't want to, because I had a lot of players for double 34 that I didn't want to take out. I didn't want a wild card. So that's why I had to kind of make a few awkward transfers, and one of them was Ryan Aït-Nouri. So at least he gave me some joy in a painful week in Gameweek 31. Beat the average, fine. Still got 64 points. 50, 58, 54, 56. Can he count? It was 56 in the end with the -8. But yeah, it was painful. It was really, really painful. It's just one of those things that the safety score this week was quite high, unfortunately, because of a lot of people owning Foden. But Aït-Nouri at least got me a goal. Legend. He was basically playing as left winger against Burnley, which was great to see, and he scored a goal. So he was my little differential I brought in Game 31. So when he scored, that really made my week. Saliba got a 7-pointer. Again, gets another bonus point. Lovely stuff. Gabriel as well. Clean sheet was pretty safe against Luton. Zabarnyi, now that was a bit fortunate because he was first on my bench, but I didn't feel that it was worth starting Zabarnyi because of the striker I ended up bringing in. So I had Neto in goal, but Zabarnyi came as an auto sub because of the fact that Saka didn't play for me. Saka was a no-show, which was pretty surprising. Didn't expect it, to be honest. But that's why you should always have a good first bench. And Zabarnyi came in with a 7-pointer, clean sheet, bonus point, lovely stuff. So very happy with him. And then Doherty was also one of my auto subs. Obviously away to Arsenal, I was never going to start him. But he was second on my bench. And that was because Haaland didn't play a single minute. And that was frustrating. I hoped that Haaland would at least get some minutes off the bench. But it wasn't to be. So, yeah, in the end, Doherty was a bit of frustration. Son, midfield, blank against West Ham. Palmer, though, with a hat-trick. What a legend. So he's repaid me the faith. Even though Foden's gone off with a hat-trick, he scored, 5 goals over these last 2 weeks I've owned him. So a very good investment, Cole Palmer. Even though he didn't double in 34, I just felt with the fixtures he needed to come in. So, yeah, he's been absolutely legendary. Salah, frustrating, though, because I bring in Salah as part of a -8. I have all these hokey-cokey, do I keep Son? Do I sell Son? I need to get Salah in. He's absolutely essential. And this is the one week he decides to do nothing against Sheffield United and get subbed before 60. Brilliant. That's FPL for you. Typical, isn't it? So, yeah, very frustrating, absolutely. And, yeah, was basically the reason for my downfall. No, to be fair, everyone had him, so it's one of those things. We're not going to be too worried by it, but it's still frustrating. The front two then, Mateta came in, so that's why I wanted to bench Zabarnyi, because I felt Palace probably would score against Bournemouth. And then, if they don't, then great, I've got Neto. So it ended up being the latter. But the frustrating thing was, Palace did score originally, and I thought, it might be a Mateta goal. No, it was Eze. So it was the wrong Palace player. Then the goal got wiped out, which was good for Neto. But then, yeah, Mateta blanking was a bit of a shame in general. So, yeah, it was a shame because the fixtures for Mateta the next couple are pretty tough. I just thought about 34 and I didn't have any, good forwards that I could afford. It was basically 4.9 forward and Mateta was the only one really that doubled. So, yeah, bit of a shame that one, but it is what it is. He at least is there for 34. Solanke also blanked in the same fixture. Again, bit of a shame, but, it is what it is. On the bench, we had Areola, Saka, Haaland and Chan. So for the first time in ages, no points on the bench, which is a lovely sight to see, but it's a shame about the red arrow. So yeah, we dropped again with another red arrow. So we've gone from 60k before Gameweek 30 to 73k, which is not that bad. It was 60k to 61k in 30, so a very, very small red in 30, but then a bit more hefty in 31. But you know what? It's still a decent rank, 73k. Pretty happy with that. And I think this is the week where you bounce back and get a green arrow. So let me show you my team selection for Gameweek 32. As I mentioned, I've got my wildcard left and my bench boost. So the plan is to bench boost in 37, wildcard in 35. So I'm just building towards the double Gameweek 34 with my transfers. And I'm planning to have pretty much a full 11 or full 10 at least of doublers. Now, at the moment, I've got doubling in 34, Neto in goal, Zabarnyi, Solanke, Gabriel Saliba, Ait Nouri, Salah, and Mateta. So, and Hwang as well, don't forget. So, basically, I've got quite a lot of doublers at the moment, and my bench at the moment would be Cole Palmer, Son, and Doherty in Gameweek 34. Now, with that would be 10 doublers with Haaland. The plan is, though, that I might be selling Haaland in 34, as crazy as it sounds. I won't sell him before Luton, because that's crazy. But away to Brighton, I'm going to take the risk, I think, and have a full 11 of doublers. Well, that means the plan is I want to keep Son for the next couple of weeks. Newcastle after Nottingham Forest, so it's worth keeping. But then in 34, when Spurs blank, I can sell Son. And then I'd also want to sell Haaland for a doubling forward. Probably most likely Darwin Núñez, because I've got Mateta there already. Darwin probably needs to come in because I've only got Salah at the moment from Liverpool. So that's probably the two moves I make in 34. The issue is, between now and then, I've got at least a minimum of 3 transfers I have to make because I don't want to lose a transfer. I don't want to burn a transfer. I need to either roll 1 week and make 2, or, you know, basically make at least 1 between now or next week if I'm making 2 in 34. So the plan is, it's a really stupid and boring transfer this week, but I think just because he doubles in 34, the situation I'll be in is once I take out Son and Haaland, so at the moment I've got Haaland and 10 doublers, right? But that includes Son on the bench. But if I bring in a doubler for Son, there's more upside for midfielding doublers, so therefore I'd be benching one of the players that I'd be bringing in. So, for instance, if I'm making a transfer this week, it wouldn't be for Son or Haaland, it would be probably for Doughty, because I think Mateta's already there. Hwang looks like he'll be back very soon. And so then Doughty's the one that, you know, needs to change into a doubler. The issue is that come 34, when I start all the players I want to, that will include Son and Haaland. So it will mean benching both Zabarnyi and Branthwaite, because if I'm playing Son and Haaland together and Mateta, then I'll be playing 3 at the back with Ait Nouri, Gabriel and Saliba. And I've already got Neto for the double for Bournemouth, so I don't need 2 Bournemouth players, whereas at least with Arsenal, you know, they're a better defence, so you can double up on them. But I think I'll probably be benching both Zabarnyi and the replacement for Doughty I bring this week that doubles in 34. So basically what I'm saying is I'll probably most likely be benching this player in game week 32, but it is what it is, right? I can have Mateta first sub, he scored in the reverse fixture, or I could alternatively have this player I bring in first sub to come in if Saka doesn't play. Do I want Mateta in for Man City? It's not the best of fixtures. Do I think he could score? Maybe. And I always think back the attacker on the first bench, but you know, I could leave it the open option of having, say, a Branthwaite or a Mikalenko coming in for Saka. So therefore, that's my transfer this week. It's boring, I know, but it just gives me an option, because let's say by 34 there's a lot of injuries. Yes, I'll have 2 doublers on my bench, but there'll be low upside doublers of Branthwaite and Zabarnyi, and therefore if one of my doublers gets injured, I won't have to transfer them out. I can just basically switch in Branthwaite or Zabarnyi if they need to come in. So that's my plan, that's my transfer. So it's a very going to be rolling in game week 33, because to be honest, I don't really like the fixtures for clean sheets for anyone. And what I'm thinking is, it just makes sense to do those transfers because, you know, I've got to think about the long term with this team. I've got to think about, you know, making transfers for 34, doing it the long term. And so that's why I'm thinking Zabarnyi, you know, probably sits on the bench in 34, as does this player I bring in for Doughty. Now, Doughty will probably most likely get a clean sheet and an attack and return now that I've done this. But I just think it's worth having players set up for 34, and it doesn't make sense to burn a transfer. So therefore, even though I'm benching them, it just gives me an option to use if I want to use it come game week 34. So the plan is I will be bringing in an Everton defender, because if they get a clean sheet against Burnley, then that'll be at least some routes to points. Now the question is, do we go for Mikalenko, Tarkowski, or even a little bit of Branthwaite? Now my gut is telling me Branthwaite just because he's cheapest, so therefore more money for the coming weeks. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's most likely to get attack and returns. I think Mikalenko's got attack and return potential, and therefore I'm tempted to go for Mikalenko. Tarkowski, obviously a former Burnley player, so he's got a bit of chance of getting attack and returns. And Burnley from set pieces are pretty bad, so it's a difficult decision. And it's probably one of the ones where whoever I bring in, and if I start one of them or Saka doesn't play, then the other one will score. But I'm going to go for Mr. Believe it or not, we're going to bring in Mr. Mikalenko, because why not? And the fact is, I'll be rolling next week, so I don't need money in the bank. And the transfers I make for Son and Haaland, obviously I could get injuries. That is a thing to think about, but I'm hoping not. Then Son and Haaland, yeah, with those two, I'll be making downgrades anyway, because most likely it'll be Darwin and maybe like a Liverpool mid, so like a Diaz or something. So therefore, I won't need money in the bank for 34. So I think Mikalenko just makes a lot of sense. 4.9% owned. I know he hasn't scored or got an assist recently, but earlier on the season, Palace and Brighton, he did that back-to-back games. I think that's the sort of consistency I like to see from a new player. So Mikalenko is in for game week number 32. That's done, transfer locked in. So therefore, what we're going to do is Mikalenko is going to be first on bench, just because of the fixture. I know Mateta could get an attack and return, but I'm thinking if Saka doesn't play, I'm hopeful of a Burnley, blank for their attack in that team. So that is my team locked in for game week number 32. I'm pretty happy with the rest of it. I think Zabarnyi away to Luton. I could well bench Zabarnyi if I think Luton score. To be fair, they often do score at home. That is a thing to think about. You know what? Because I'm starting Neto, I think I might do that, because I back Luton to score at home. They often do. So I might as well start Mikalenko because I'm playing him, and therefore Mateta's on the bench with Zabarnyi. That's my transfer. That's my team locked in. At least Mikalenko will actually play for me, and I can't believe I've done this. I've put my faith in the Everton defence, which is probably a recipe for disaster. But you know what? He's going to play in 34. What's the point of bringing in a player if you're not going to start them? So I'm going to gamble and hope that Luton score, even though I've got Neto, because Mikalenko, fingers crossed, he can get an attack and return, and I can absolutely go crazy. That's my FPL Game Week 32 transfers and captaincy. It's gone down to Palmer because I think against Sheffield United, it's just a no-brainer. Salah's tempting against Man United. Obviously, we know what he can do. Haaland and Son are both good options as well in their own right, but I think it's just got to be Cole. He scored a hat-trick in midweek. He's facing Sheffield United. Don't overthink this one. And if he was priced at 9 million, we'd all be doing it. It's just he's priced at a cheaper price, so we're all like, oh, surely it's got to be Salah, it's got to be Haaland. No, Cole, King Cole, come on, mate, let's go. Those are my FPL transfers. Hope you have enjoyed. See you next time. Bye-bye.